Hi, my name is Teresa Guanique. I'm the director of Flawa Festival. This year, the festival, due to the pandemic, the world pandemic, we decided to change a little bit of the festival and decided to create Flawa at Home. This festival is trying to bring the artists, the Latin American artists, to your house at this time. So I am here with Karoline Pelikan. She is the film programmer of the Flawa Festival, and Natalia Cabral, the director of Miriam Miente. This is going to be a talk of 45 minutes, and we will have the opportunity to know more about Natalia and her work. I'll leave you now with Karoline Pelikan.
Thank you so much, Teresa. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for participating in tonight's event. I'm very, very excited about our special guest. And I'm hosting this event tonight. So I'm a German-Peruvian documentary filmmaker, film teacher, and film curator. And when I moved to London 2 years ago, I founded the cinema project Cine Latino, which promotes the work of independent Latin American filmmakers and offers or tries to offer a deeper understanding of the current Latin American film culture. And to showcase these films, we collaborate with amazing partners such as Flawa. So for Flawa, one of the films, I picked Miriam Miente. And that's what I'm very excited about, because tonight we'll be joined by the director and award-winning filmmaker of the film, Natalia Cabral. Hello, Natalia.
Hello.
And Natalia is a director and producer born in the Dominican Republic. She studied cinema at the very prestigious International School of Film and TV in San Antonio de los Baños, Cuba. In 2012, she founded her production company, Faula Films, with her husband and co-director, Oriol Estrada. The couple's debut documentary, Tu y Yo, or You and Me, won several awards at international film festivals. And Miriam Miente is their first fictional film that we're going to talk a little bit more about tonight. I hope you all have seen the film. If not, or for the ones who haven't seen it, Natalia, would you be so kind? Could you give us a brief summary of what the film is about?
Okay, well, hello. Thank you for having me here. So Miriam Lies is a story about a 14-year-old called Miriam. She's about to celebrate her 15th birthday party, her quinceañera. And for that, she's inviting her internet boyfriend, Jean-Louis, to attend with her. Days before the party, they decide to meet each other personally, and Miriam spots him in a crowded museum and realizes that he's from another social class and he's Black. She doesn't come closer to meet him, but her family and friends are waiting for her companion to the party. So she's afraid of what they might think, and she starts lying, and this lie just gets bigger and bigger as the day of the party approaches.
Racism, and also this internalized racism in a way, is a global problem. What do you think can an international audience take away from this film set in the Dominican Republic, set somewhere else? As you say, they look from outside saying, oh, that happened in that country, but not with us. What can they learn, and what do they tell them?
Yeah, well, what's interesting about the film is that internal racism, right? That Miriam she's also white, but she's also Black, and in this situation, it feels like you have to take side. You have to decide if you're Black or white. You have to, So that happens a lot in a very cultural and multiracial country like Dominican Republic, because the people in power are still white people, right? And they decide that, for example, if you are a Black person, if you have curly hair, that's not exactly how you should be. Like, for example, there are a lot of women that if they if they work in a bank or if they work in a supermarket and they go with their natural curly hair, they get molested. Like, no, you have to straighten your hair. It's still happening, and that's unfair, because you should wear your hair the way you want to. you know. Dulce, the protagonist of the film, the actress, the first time that her mother took us to the casting, she apologized because she didn't have they didn't have time to take her to the beauty salon. So she went with her natural hair, and it was like, you don't have to apologize. I mean, she's perfect for the story, you know. And when we would go to Q&As with her, it was always the same thing. She would always tell us, but please, you have to remind me the date and everything, because she has to go to the beauty salon and we have to straighten her hair. And it was like, I would always ask her, but does she want her hair to be straightened? No. So why do you straighten? No, because it's better, because it's prettier, because that's the way it should be. So yeah, it's like the fiction of the film would also be outside of the film.
Outside of the film.
I think the film is so necessary.
Yeah.
Because even after the film, Dulce, the protagonist, still struggles with how she looks like, even after the film.
And I briefly mentioned Tu y Yo, or You and Me, your debut documentary in the beginning, that centers also around two strong women. Then Miriam Miente is centered around a very strong teenager. And I feel also most characters in the film that you choose are a strong female lead. Do you think you get more easily drawn to these strong female characters in your film, or how do you pick them?
Mm-hmm. No, I think that we don't think about gender when we think about a film. For example, we have a film in between You and Me and Miriam Lies. It's called Side of Sights. Mm-hmm. And in this film, it's we follow 5 or 6 protagonists, and one of them is a group of men that are constructing an artificial beach. And when they're not working, they're talking about women and how bad they are, how bad we are, how bad women are, and how so they have suffered so much in love and with women, and women are terrible, you know. And it actually makes you think that they what they want is to fall in love, really, you know. That's what they want. And yeah, I think that we just like characters that we feel that are authentic, and that we feel that when we meet them and get close to them, it's like watching a movie, you know. And we just have to follow their lead, right? So that's what we are interested in.
Mm-hmm. And you just mentioned you're working with your husband and making these films. However, I can still imagine that there are some difficulties. What, if you had to pin it down, what major difficulties do you see for women making films?
Mm-hmm. Well, in my country, in the Dominican Republic, the film industry, it's a new industry. We started making films regularly since 2012 with the enactment of the Dominican film law. So by this time, there were a lot of empowered women. We have a lot of producers, a lot of directors, and we have crews that are mostly women. So in this sense, I think we don't have like a big problem in that sense. I think the biggest problem is actually, well, education at home and education in schools. That it is a lot about gender, what females should do and what males should do, you know. And it is still this Catholic, women should stay at home and men should go out and be with prostitutes, I don't know, and be these macho, you know, egos, and women have to be like at home, you know, this kind of education and thinking that we have to overcome with education at home and also in schools. And that's something very important that we have to understand. Mm-hmm. Because the change has to start in the beginning of our lives, right? Not when we're in shooting, and I mean, sometimes it's too late. You know, we have grown-ups that think that things should be this way or that way. That's very hard to change. So I think that it has to come when we're very little, and we can have the freedom to be who we want to be, regardless of our sex.
Did you, or are there any experiences that you could share where you really situations where you felt discriminated against for being a woman, in that sense, a woman making a film, but maybe even especially a Latin American woman making a film? I don't know if there's a difference, because you just mentioned it in the Latin American culture. It's very, very much male dominated. The industry is male dominated, I think, everywhere globally, but it's putting into context the machismo culture in Latin America, I think it's even more difficult. I don't know what your experiences are.
Yeah, I like to talk more about the system that we live in, the system of power and humiliation, and what people do when they have the power, if they use this power to help others, or if they use this power to humiliate others, and by this be more powerful, right? Because I can be discriminated by men, but I can also be discriminated by women, and that has happened to me. Like, I've had conversations with very important women producers who tell me, you're never going to do this film, you're never going to find this budget, and you're never going to find this actor, nobody. And it's like, and she's a woman. So, you know, so again, I don't think it's about gender. I think it's about attitude, and I think it's about also the system that we're all victims of, the system of power, you know. Like, for example, when you see Donald Trump, you ask yourself, how is it possible? How can this person be the president of a country? We have to ask ourselves, how could that happen? But it happens everywhere. I mean, if you have a job in any, I don't know, I mean, everybody knows a Donald Trump in their life. And we could also be Donald Trumps, little Donald Trumps, like when we don't respect the other person, right? And if we have more power or more experience or more money, we can think that we can push people around. So I think the debate should be more about how we should treat each other, especially when we're vulnerable, especially when we have somebody by our side that doesn't have the knowledge that we have, or that doesn't have the experience that we have, that doesn't give us the right to push them around or make them feel less. But it should be our responsibility to help others, I think.
You just mentioned it. To resume it briefly, I think you might have made the same experiences, because whenever I do, for example, film workshops or even in film schools, you see a lot of women working on amazing projects, having amazing ideas. And if you look around, it might be our surroundings that you kind of listen of women's project. But however, if you go to the cinema, if you see the list of commercially successful films or award shows or everything, it seems like films directed by women is almost like a rare find, or always something that needs to be labeled as special. Oh, this is like films of women or women-made films. Do you think there is anything getting in the way of women directing, or why is that? Like, it seems there is this imbalance of a lot of women being in film schools at the same time in cinemas, almost a rare find.
Yes, well, I feel very hopeful for the future, because when I think about, for example, my grandmother, she married when she was 17. I mean, my great-grandfathers married her to my grandfather, and she couldn't finish school. You know, that's my grandmother. And then my mother could finish school. She went to the university, and she even had a master's degree, but she really had a hard time being a mother and being a professional, because she divorced from my father, and then she married another, and it was hard to be with a couple who would understand that a woman could also have a professional career. And now I have a professional career, I have a daughter, and I understand, and my husband understands, you know, that I need a career. So there are 3 generations with very different circumstances. And that's why I feel hopeful, because I believe that my daughter will have a better life, because times are changing really, really fast. It was yesterday that women couldn't vote, and now we can do so many things. And I understand that there are still a lot of countries or cultures where women aren't allowed to do a lot of the things that we are allowed to do. So I think that that's like should be the main focus, you know. Like if I compare myself with a little girl in India or in any other country that is raped when she's 10 years old, things like that, it's like, you know, like it's like my problem as a filmmaker is not so important, you know, when I compare myself with this situation. So I think that's where we have to work harder to protect little girls and little boys also, who are also violated, who are also deprived of their childhood. I mean, there's so much to do in the world still for everybody.
Is it still hard for you, you think, or do you still find difficulties in finding funding for your films? Not only because you're a woman, but especially that, as you said, in a film industry work in Dominican Republic that is just about to start, that might not have that much funding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's always hard to find the money for your films. It is always hard. But you always have to be open enough to not to change completely your project, but to rearrange it, you know, because what's important in a film, it's not how it looks like, but that your message gets through, like the feeling that you want to share. And you can do that in so many ways. There are so many different styles of filmmaking, and there's so many different stories that you can tell. So I think that yes, you have to think about money all the time. You can spend 5 years or more struggling to get that money. But it's very important to not forget why did you start that project, and that eventually you will do your film like the way you want it to.
And one, to wrap it up before we might hand over to the audience, how are you trying to encourage new female directors or producers to get their project done? Or is there anything motivating you can say? There might be a few female filmmakers in the audience.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I would say is just for them to be themselves and not let anybody tell them what kind of film they should do, because it's not true that a woman director has to be this like very secured and very bossy person, you know. Like shy people like me can also make films, and so you don't have to change your personality. You don't have to make a very expensive film, or you don't have to make a very specific type of film to make it. You just have to be yourself and do the films that you like, and try to be humble and try to understand critics. I mean, criticism is good, and just try to stay true to yourself.
And do we have first questions? Or while we're waiting, I would point out to one last question I asked you already before. So you might have a few names that you can tell us. What films directed by women shouldn't we miss? What films did you see in the past few years that you were like, oh, this is definitely a must-see?
Yes, well, 3 weeks ago I saw, maybe you've seen it, the film of Tatiana Hueso from Salvador. I was very amazed by this film. I recommend it, and I'm not gonna tell the story, but I want people to, when they see it, to try to think about the way that she tells the story. You know, have you seen it? Tempestad?
No, but I know Tatiana Hueso.
Okay, well, I really recommend this film. It's beautiful. It's very interesting, the way that she tells this story of violence in Mexico. You should check it out. And I really like this director from Austria called Jessica Hausner.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know her?
No, not personally.
Oh,
Heard of her.
You should check her films because she's a really smart female director. I like her black sense of humor and the way that she frames. You should check out her films also. She's really nice.
And maybe to wrap it up, if there are no more questions, be fast in the chat or raise your hand. Coming back to the gender inclusivity in the business, how inclusive, talking about the future, do you see our business evolving? Like, where is it going? Where are we going in terms of gender questions in our film industry?
Mm-hmm. Well, like I said before, I'm more worried about, the system that we're living in that is fair for us in the film industry, but also everyone, the system of power and humiliation and how people treat themselves. I think that also there are a lot of men who are also not having, opportunities, and it is because, I don't know, like for example, imagine a Haitian filmmaker in Haiti who is a man, right? How many, does he really have opportunities? Does he has more opportunities than a woman from Norway, for example, that wants to make films? So it's not only about gender, it's also about where you were born, in which country you were born, in which culture, in which social class you were born. And I think at the end, it is always about, power and the unfairness of the world. I had the opportunity to work with wonderful men and women from everywhere, and we all have the same problem all the time. We all want money to make our films, and we all have to sometimes even humiliate ourselves for $2,000 to just for something, for post-production, to somebody that has the money, or a fund, or a producer that has more contacts than us. So I think that this system, we have to change it. I mean, we have to be side by side with the vulnerable, and we have to understand that when you and I are communicating, it should be an horizontal relationship. It's not that I'm better because I make films and you don't, or I have more experience, or I have more money. I mean, we are living the same experience of collaboration, and we should always be fair and respectful with others.
This is not a question. It's like to share my impression with with Natalia. As a Dominican, I felt sometimes like seeing myself in a mirror, especially with the complicity between the girls and all that preparation of the party. So I want to celebrate, like I'm proud of to see how Dominican women like you express our quotidianity in a film, in this film. I felt like in the time machine, especially with the soundtracks. So
oh yeah.
Yeah. It was amazing. Yeah. And nothing, and just congratulations to you, and just to keep doing, because I think it's a good representation of what we are in the deep, So yeah, something is sad about the racism and about the power scale, but at the end there was a nice message especially the about the friendship and yes, and about the dreams we want to follow, you know. So it's all what I wanted to tell you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Carmen. That was so nice. Thank you. It's so nice to hear that, of course, because you make films for not for yourself but for other people. So that's very nice.
I have one question. Would you consider that if you have a little bit more money, I am from Dominican Republic, I grew up there. If you have a little bit more money, would that make you whiter or more acceptable in a family?
It could be. It could be, yes, tú sabes. Yeah, it's like money whitens you, right? A lot of people say that el dinero emblanquece, no? Sadly, yeah, because I think that the value of a person is not, it doesn't come with race or even with money. It comes from what you have inside, the values that you have and the talent that you have. But yes, I think I'm a hopeful person. I think what's important is that we can create movies where we can, like right now we're talking about all of this, and I think that that's the most important thing, that the conversation keeps on going. Like maybe next year another film will come from Dominican Republic that you could feel represented and that you could feel like, oh, this is an important film. So we have to keep the conversation going. I make films, but maybe you are a mother or maybe you are a sister, and you can, by the way you educate your daughter or you educate some member of your family, you can also make a difference. So it's just keep the conversation going. Thank you very much for your opinions. It was very nice. Thank you for watching the film.
Yes, thank you very much, Carmen, Saida. I think we're going to wrap it up now. And
Yes.
Thank you very much, Natalia, for making, again, this very, very beautiful, and I think Carmen said it, it's a film about racism, but it's also a film about friendship. It's a beautiful coming-of-age story.